Think for a second about the most secure vault in the world. Like, what immediately pops into your head?
Oh, probably, stacks of gold bars.
Right. Gold bars, or like intricate laser grids, maybe heavily armed guards, or, I don't know, priceless diamonds locked away in the dark somewhere.
Yeah, that classic movie vault aesthetic.
Exactly. But what if the most genuinely valuable thing on Earth isn't shiny at all? What if the ultimate treasure is actually, brown, a little wrinkly, and roughly the size of a pinhead?
It really is a profound shift in perspective when you think about it, because we are so conditioned to think of wealth in terms of currency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or rare earth metals or jewels.
Mm-hmm.
But true security, like the literal foundation of human survival, it actually comes down to biological code. I mean, it comes down to seeds.
Yeah. And to protect that biological code, humanity went and built a literal fortress in the absolute freezing dark of the Arctic Circle, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault. And, okay, let's unpack this, because the media absolutely loves to call this place the Doomsday Vault.
Oh, they love that term.
Right. It immediately conjures up these, like, vivid images of asteroid strikes or some zombie apocalypse. But the reality of why this facility exists is, well, it's actually much more grounded than that.
Precisely. Yeah. The Doomsday moniker, I mean, it makes for a fantastic cinematic headline.
Totally.
But it kind of obscures the actual vulnerability of our global food supply.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about threats to regional gene banks, we aren't usually talking about a meteor. We're talking about a localized power grid failure.
Like a blackout.
Right, exactly. We're talking about a broken refrigeration unit that just goes unnoticed over a long holiday weekend, or, quite frankly, a sudden cut in government funding that forces a national facility to shut its doors.
Which is way less Hollywood, but way more terrifying because it's so common.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These events happen with surprising regularity. So the Svalbard Vault is designed to be the ultimate safety net for the world's, I think it's roughly 1,750 traditional gene banks. It's for when human error or mechanical failure or just local tragedies strike.
So it's less about surviving an apocalypse and more about, surviving a blown fuse or a bad budget.
Yeah.
But I feel like to really understand what is actually inside this vault and how it physically works, we really need to look at the sheer scale of the engineering. And for you listening, that really starts with the location itself.
Right. The geography is key.
Because the story traces back to 1984, when the Nordic Gene Bank, which is now called NordGen, they began storing backup plant genetic material from just the Nordic region. But they didn't just put it in a standard industrial freezer. They took these frozen seeds and stored them in an abandoned coal mine right outside of Longyearbyen on the island of Spitsbergen.
Which was, at the time, a highly experimental yet completely pragmatic approach.
Really? A coal mine?
Yeah. They were essentially testing whether the natural ambient cold of the permafrost could serve as a reliable, zero-electricity baseline for long-term preservation.
Right. And using a coal mine is, like, deeply ironic. You're using the remnants of fossil fuel extraction, which, accelerates climate change, to protect our biosphere against it.
It is a bit on the nose, yeah.
But that initial experiment worked, right? It proved the concept. So fast forward to 2004, and a conservationist named Carrie Fowler leads this team to study whether they could scale this up for the entire globe.
And they decided they could.
Yeah, they decided to build this global facility right back on Spitsbergen in the Svalbard archipelago, deep in Norwegian territory. But of all the places on Earth, what makes this specific frozen rock the ideal candidate for a planetary backup drive?
What's fascinating here is how it brilliantly leverages the Earth's natural geography to basically do the heavy lifting for conservation. I mean, Spitsbergen is practically tailor-made for this kind of deep-time architecture.
How so?
First off, it completely lacks tectonic activity. You aren't going to get earthquakes shattering the foundation of the vault.
Okay, that's a big plus.
Definitely. Second, it has deep, permanent permafrost, which naturally aids the preservation. And third, the vault is located 130 meters. So that's about 430 feet above sea level.
Oh, meaning even if the most severe climate change scenarios play out and all the ice caps just melt completely, the vault stays dry.
Exactly.
It is physically situated above the maximum high water mark of a melted planet, which is honestly brilliant planning. It's like a cloud backup server for your computer, but instead of silicon and server racks, it's built into a sandstone mountain using permafrost.
That's a great analogy. But the location is really only the baseline. The thermal engineering inside the vault is what actually guarantees the preservation.
Right, because the mountain itself isn't cold enough on its own, is it?
No, it's not. Locally mined coal actually provides the power for refrigeration units that cool the seeds down to the international standard of minus 18 degrees Celsius, which is roughly 0 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay, wait. I want to pause on that temperature for a second. Because if you just take, like, a normal seed from your garden and freeze it to minus 18 degrees, the water inside the seed cells will expand, right? It'll crystallize and rupture the cell wall.
It would absolutely destroy it, yeah.
The seed would just be dead. So how do these seeds survive that kind of deep freeze?
That is the crucial biological hurdle.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, simply freezing a raw, fresh seed destroys it.
Mm-hmm.
So the temperature is only effective because of the really rigorous preparation the seeds undergo before they ever reach the vault.
So they aren't just chucking them in a bag and mailing them.
Not at all. They are subjected to a painstaking dehydration process. They reduce the internal moisture content of the seeds down to about 5 or 6%.
Oh, wow. That's incredibly dry.
It has to be. Once they're dehydrated, they're sealed in these custom 3-ply foil packages. By removing the water, you basically remove the mechanism that causes the cellular damage during freezing.
Ah, no water means no ice crystals.
Exactly. And then the cold just halts the seed's metabolic processes entirely, basically placing it into a state of suspended animation.
That is so cool. And once they are in that suspended animation, the physical fail-safes of the mountain kind of take over, right?
They do.
Because the vault is built 130 meters deep into this solid sandstone mountain. So if the absolute worst happens, say total catastrophic power failure, the cooling units just die and literally nobody comes to fix them, the ambient environment acts as this massive thermal battery.
Yes, the thermal inertia of that much solid rock is just immense. Because it's buried so deep in the permafrost, a feasibility study showed it would take at least several weeks for the facility to even warm up to the surrounding sandstone bedrock's natural temperature.
And what is that natural temperature?
It sits at minus 3 degrees Celsius.
Okay, wait. It would take several weeks just to hit minus 3.
Yes.
And I read the estimates say it would take 2 full centuries, 200 years, for the vault to gradually warm up to 0 degrees Celsius, the actual freezing point.
Which is staggering to think about.
Right. That gives humanity a 200-year buffer to fix the power grid before the seeds even begin to thaw. That's the ultimate failsafe.
It really is an unprecedented level of biological security. Because under these specific dehydrated and sub-zero conditions, the seeds of most major food crops can be preserved for hundreds of years.
Wow.
And certain vital grains could potentially remain viable for thousands of years.
Okay, but building a mountain fortress is really only half the battle, because you also have to convince the entire world to actually put their most precious agricultural heritage inside of it.
Yes, and that is a massive challenge.
Right. Getting the rival nations of the world to agree on anything, let alone trusting each other with the literal foundation of their food supply, that requires a legal architecture that is just as airtight as the physical vault.
Honestly, the diplomacy is arguably more complex than the engineering.
I believe it.
The management of the vault relies on a highly specific legal framework. It's called a tripartite agreement. And it involves 3 key players: the Norwegian government, an organization called the Crop Trust, and NordGen, which is the Nordic Genetic Resource Center.
Okay, so breaking that down, Norway paid the construction cost, right? Which was about 8.8 million US dollars back in 2008.
Correct.
And they own the actual physical facility. Then the Crop Trust provides the funding for the ongoing operations, and they heavily subsidize developing nations to help them prepare and ship their seeds.
Yes, they ensure money isn't a barrier.
And then NordGen actually operates the vault on a day-to-day basis, maintaining the massive public database of what is actually stored inside. And the storage itself is totally free for the depositors.
Completely free.
But I have to admit, I'm a bit hung up on the economics here.
Okay, how so?
Well, if Norway built it, the Crop Trust covers shipping, and the storage is completely free. What is stopping a chronically underfunded national government from just firing its own gene bank staff, shutting down its local facilities, and using Svalbard as its primary free storage facility?
That is a very logical concern. But it is entirely prevented by the strict mechanics of what they call the black box system.
The black boxes.
Right. Svalbard is legally and operationally restricted to being a secondary backup. It fundamentally cannot function as a primary gene bank. The seed vault operates exactly like a safe deposit box at your local bank.
Oh, yeah, I'm following.
The bank, in this case, Norway, they own the building.
Yep.
but the depositor retains absolute ownership over the contents of their specific box.
So if a researcher in, say, Canada wants to study a specific drought-resistant wheat seed that they see listed in the Svalbard database, they can't actually get it from the vault?
Correct. They cannot request it from Svalbard. They have to request it from the original gene bank that deposited it. No one has access to anyone else's seeds. Norway does not claim any ownership over the deposits. And sending a seed to Svalbard does not constitute a legal transfer of genetic resources.
That's a crucial distinction.
It is. If a nation shut down its own gene bank to rely solely on Svalbard, they would entirely lose their ability to distribute, study, or utilize their own seeds, because Svalbard has absolutely no mechanism or mandate to act as a distribution hub.
So the restriction is the feature, not a bug.
Exactly.
That black box strictness is the ultimate trust-building exercise, because in a world fraught with geopolitical tension, the only way you get rival nations to send their national heritage to a foreign country is by guaranteeing, both legally and physically, that those genetic resources can never be transferred, accessed, or stolen by anyone else.
It ensures the vault remains a true backup drive, not a public library.
Right. And this legal separation is what makes the international cooperation possible at all. But having this elegant theory and these airtight legal agreements, it's only really reassuring until the system is actually subjected to a real-world crisis.
And unfortunately, that test came sooner than anyone would have liked.
Yeah, which moves us beyond the theory of a doomsday vault to a very real, very dramatic test case.
Yeah.
Because the system was forced into action by the devastating reality of the Syrian civil war.
It was. The situation with the International Center for Agricultural Research in the Dry Areas, or ICARTA, it's the definitive proof of concept for the Svalbard Vault.
Here's where it gets really interesting. So ICARTA, they operated this major gene bank located in Tel Hadia, Syria.
Right, and their specific focus was on seeds from the Fertile Crescent.
Which is huge.
Yeah, it represents some of the oldest agricultural varieties in human history. These are crops that have naturally adapted over millennia to survive in extremely arid environments.
But as the war escalated, the researchers at ICARTA had to make this agonizing decision to just abandon their facility in Tel Hadia. They lost the ability to maintain their gene bank, and they could no longer safely distribute samples to the researchers and farmers who relied on them.
Their primary drive had essentially crashed.
Exactly. But thankfully, before the conflict reached that point, ICARTA had meticulously prepared and deposited backup samples into the Svalbard Global Seed Vault,
which initiated an unprecedented logistical operation. In 2015, and then again in 2017, ICARTA formally requested their black boxes back.
And those were the first withdrawals ever, right?
Yes. These represent the first and currently the only withdrawals in the entire history of the vault. The requested seeds were shipped from the Arctic down to ICARTA's newly established research facilities in Lebanon and Morocco.
And they didn't just put them in a new freezer once they got there. The ICARTA scientists took those dormant, dehydrated seeds, they planted them in fields, and they carefully grew them out. They brought them back to life.
They literally seeded their own recovery.
Yeah. They multiplied the seeds, distributed them to researchers who desperately needed those drought-resistant traits, fully stocked their new gene banks in Lebanon and Morocco, and then in just a perfect completion of the cycle, they dehydrated and packaged a brand new batch of backup seeds and sent them right back to the frozen mountain in Svalbard.
It is just a remarkable testament to the resilience of both the biological material and the human institutions safeguarding it.
It really is.
The withdrawal proved that the meticulous cataloging, the tripartite legal frameworks, the deep freeze engineering, it all performed flawlessly under immense pressure.
It actually worked when it mattered.
Yes. It validates the foundational mission of the facility. And it reminds us that catastrophic loss doesn't require a global extinction event. For the agricultural heritage of the Fertile Crescent, doomsday had arrived in the form of regional conflict, and the vault was there to catch them.
It really reframes the whole concept of preservation, because the vault isn't a static museum or a tomb, you know. It's a living, breathing mechanism for recovery. And knowing that this system can successfully resurrect a region's crops after a war naturally raises the question of scale. Like, who else is utilizing this safety net today?
The scale of participation is staggering, and it is continually growing. As of early 2025, the Seed Vault conserves over 1.37 million individual accessions.
Over a million.
Yeah. And just for clarity, an accession is a distinct, unique variety of plant material, often referred to as germplasm, that's collected from a specific location and time.
Okay.
And those 1.37 million deposits come from 127 different depositors worldwide.
1.37 million distinct samples. And when you look at the manifest of depositors, it is this fascinating cross-section of global agriculture.
It really is.
You have the heavy hitters, right? The massive international and national gene banks. Like the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center has deposited over 180,000 samples.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. National Plant Germplasm System has sent over 150,000. Nations from Germany to South Korea are heavily invested. But the system is remarkably egalitarian. It isn't just restricted to massive industrial agriculture centers. Indigenous communities are also leveraging the vault to safeguard their ancestral crops.
And this is one of the most vital developments in the vault's history.
Yeah.
In 2015, representatives from the Parque de la Papa, the potato park in Peru, deposited 750 unique, locally adapted samples of Andean potatoes.
That's amazing.
It is. And in 2020, the Cherokee Nation became the first U.S. tribe to make a deposit, safeguarding 9 distinct samples of heirloom food crops. This includes sacred varieties of corn and beans that entirely predate European colonization.
It is a profound democratization of preservation. I mean, you have this ultimate time capsule where on the exact same metal shelving rack, sitting side by side in the same minus 18-degree air, you have massive industrial wheat experiments and ancient heirloom seeds that have been safeguarded by indigenous tribes for centuries.
And that diversity is scientifically critical. Protecting these unique, highly localized genetic traits is arguably more urgent than protecting mass-produced commercial wheat.
Why is that?
Because those traditional crops have survived millennia of localized environmental stress. They contain epigenetic memories and genetic traits that provide natural disease resistance and climate adaptability.
Ah, I see.
So as our global climate shifts and industrial monocultures become increasingly vulnerable to, say, new pathogens or extreme weather, the genetic keys locked inside those Cherokee heirloom seeds or those Andean potatoes might offer exactly the resilience our future food systems will require.
Right. But relying on ancient Cherokee seeds or Andean potatoes to save our future food supply kind of assumes the vault itself will survive our changing climate.
Which is a big assumption.
Yeah, because even a mountain fortress built to outlast human civilization eventually has to reckon with a rapidly warming planet. And in October 2016, the vault's own invincibility was seriously tested.
It was a significant stress test. And honestly, a sobering moment for the facility's administrators.
So, Svalbard experienced extraordinarily high temperatures and unprecedented heavy rainfall that October.
Mm-hmm.
The vault was originally engineered to handle minor water intrusion at the entrance during the standard spring thaw. But this was on an entirely different scale. The sheer volume of rain, combined with unusually rapid melting of the localized permafrost, caused water to breach and surge 15 meters into the 100-meter entrance tunnel.
The media coverage at the time painted a rather dire picture.
Oh, they loved it. The Doomsday Vault is flooding.
Exactly. But the actual structural design functioned exactly as intended under pressure.
Really? Even with that much water?
Yes. Because the entrance tunnel deliberately slopes downward. So when the encroaching water surged those 15 meters in, it hit the ambient minus 3-degree permafrost zone of the deeper tunnel and literally froze into a glacier long before it could ever reach the physical storage rooms where the seeds are actually kept.
Oh, wow. So the seeds were never in danger.
The biological material was never at risk.
Okay, the fail-safe worked. But, I mean, 15 meters of water flooding into the entrance tunnel of the world's most important vault is still a massive wake-up call? Isn't it wildly ironic that a facility built to protect us from environmental catastrophe was almost breached by the very climate change it's hedging against?
That's the ultimate irony, yes.
And it forced the Norwegian Public Works Agency to undertake immediate and extensive upgrades. By 2019, they had completed a major overhaul. They waterproofed the tunnel walls entirely, they removed any internal heat sources that might disrupt the permafrost, and they dug these deep exterior drainage ditches into the mountain to divert future extreme rainfall.
The engineering upgrades were swift, and they were effective. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the 2016 breach serves as a stark warning.
How so?
We can build the strongest, most resilient shield imaginable.
Oh.
But ultimately, the vault is still inextricably linked to the overarching health of the planet. If the global environment degrades drastically enough, even Arctic permafrost can melt.
Right.
It is a potent reminder that ex situ conservation, blocking biological material away in a vault, is only a temporary insurance policy. We still have to protect the primary biosphere.
It can't just hide all our problems in a mountain.
Exactly.
But despite that vulnerability, or maybe because of it, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault has transcended its role as just a mere biological storage unit and has become this massive cultural touchstone. I mean, anyone who has seen pictures of the facility knows it doesn't look like a brutalist, boring concrete bunker.
No, it's quite striking.
It's beautiful. Running down the roof and the front face of the entryway is this stunning illuminated artwork called Perpetual Repercussion by the Norwegian artist Divekisen. Because Norwegian law actually dictates that any government-funded construction project over a certain cost must include public art.
Which is a wonderful policy.
It really is.
Yeah.
So the vault's roof is filled with highly reflective stainless steel mirrors and prisms. During the summer months, it reflects the endless polar light. And in the dark winter, 200 fiber optic cables make the entrance glow with this muted greenish turquoise and white light. It physically acts as a beacon in the Arctic night.
And that aesthetic presence perfectly mirrors its cultural weight. Science communicators, like Carrie Fowler, really helped pull the project from relative obscurity into global awareness.
For sure.
It has captured the public imagination in the same way the International Space Station has. It stands as a profound monument to what humanity can actually achieve through peaceful international collaboration.
Yeah, it's inspiring.
It has inspired feature documentaries, literature, even a children's opera designed to raise ecological awareness. Its influence directly led to the creation of an adjacent facility to the Arctic World Archive.
Oh, right.
Which applies the exact same preservation concept to digital data and human culture. They are literally etching open source code and historical documents onto specialized film designed to last a millennium.
It's humanity looking at itself in the mirror and deciding that our collective story is worth saving.
Absolutely.
So what does this all mean? When you look at everything we've explored today, from the deep thermal engineering required to maintain suspended animation, to the airtight legal frameworks of the black box system, to the harrowing real-world recovery of the Icarta seeds, the Svalbard Global Sea Vault is so much more than a bunker waiting for the end of the world.
It's an active, functioning safety net.
Yes. It proves that despite all our geopolitical chaos and our institutional flaws, there is still a shared global belief in protecting the foundations of our survival.
It is a testament to human foresight. We collectively recognized our vulnerabilities, we acknowledged the fragility of the biological systems that keep us alive, and we actually cooperated to build a tangible safeguard.
And it leaves you with the lingering, maybe slightly unsettling thought. We've spent an incredible amount of time, international capital, and brilliant engineering to build a glowing frozen fortress at the top of the world just to back up our agricultural code. We recognize the irreplaceable value of a tiny, wrinkly seed. But as you look around at the complexities of modern life, it makes you wonder if we have to go to such extreme subterranean lengths to protect our food supply from our own instability, what other fundamental building blocks of human civilization might be quietly disappearing right now? What else is incredibly fragile, just waiting for someone to build a vault before it's too late?